Hello, so today I'm going to be talking to you about why exercise is not, in my opinion, the best coping mechanism for dealing with emotional eating. In fact, it's probably on the mid-level. If we look at ones that are crap, such as eating or just hoping the problem goes away, then in the middle somewhere is exercise, and then there are the pieces that I'm going to recommend at the end. You might be thinking, why is that? Because I use that. It's often one of the first things that people say that they use when it comes to managing their emotional eating. And the problem for me, well, the first one, is that exercise will make you hungrier. I went out for a run today with my brother, lovely environment, running around a reservoir. We did 10k, and towards the back third of this, I just started to think, I can't wait to eat. I can't wait because I've burnt 600, 700, 800, maybe 900,000 calories. What can I eat with that? So I'll have sausage and a big plate of mash and a little bit of veggies. Not thinking about all the veg and the lean proteins I can eat is that exercise drives hunger. And so if you are struggling with emotional eating already, then that shows that you're not in full control of your eating. So why would you then put yourself in a situation that drives you to eat more? It's a bit like somebody who's a recovering alcoholic saying, my coping mechanism is I go and sit in pubs. And you'd automatically think, I'm not sure that's the best way of dealing with this. And that's one of my chief concerns when it comes to managing your emotional eating solely through exercise or largely reliant on exercise. Another example I've got is when I was 21, I was newly single, I'd broken up with my girlfriend as I left uni, and I remember going running near my house, and there was it was called the Chevin Steps. It's this big flight of stairs that takes you to the top of this valley where I live. It's kind of in a valley. It's not as nice as it sounds. And I remember getting halfway up or 2/3 of the way up, and my heart's thumping and my lungs are going. And all I could think about was how hard I was breathing and how hard it was. And I remember thinking afterwards, that's the first time in a couple of weeks that I'd had a gap where I could think, or I didn't have to think about the issues that were going on. And it was really nice. And I think that's what people have, is that exercise gives them a break from thinking about their emotions. But that's not a coping strategy, that's a distraction. And ultimately, 18 months after that was the first time I went to see a counsellor because I was struggling with things that had happened during that relationship. And it's a tough one because exercise, people often talk about delayed gratification. You push through the discomfort of exercise and you feel good afterwards. In this instance, when exercise is being used as a coping strategy for emotional eating, it's immediate gratification. It makes you feel good in the moment. I went for this run after this breakup and I felt really good because I wasn't having to deal with what was going on. But the problem was then longer term, it meant that there were still issues. And you can see this at the moment with young men who have the highest suicide rates. The biggest killer of men under 50 is suicide. And this is a demographic of people who traditionally do a lot of exercise and really enjoy exercise. And to me, that really highlights that exercise is part of dealing with what's going on. It's part of being healthy. But for a lot of people, it can be a distraction. It can be an unhealthy one. It also, for me personally, makes me think of the image that men have and they aspire to, and women too, about being strong. Now that leads to more exercise, but it also then makes it harder for a lot of people to deal with their emotions. Most people will not link being strong with talking about their feelings. And of course, the irony being, in my opinion anyway, that people who are mentally weaker are the ones who struggle to deal with their emotions because they're not strong enough to deal with that. And I appreciate this is talking in superlatives that covers every human being existence. So it's important to keep that differentiation, but that's my personal experience of it. And I think it takes great strength to talk about your emotions and what's going on. If anyone's ever read The Chimp Paradox by Professor Steve Peters, he was a psychologist for the British cycling team, wrote the very successful book Chimp Paradox. He talks about 3 different ways of dealing with your chimp. There's ignoring the chimp, hoping it goes away. There's tiring the chimp out through exercise, and there's listening to the chimp. And as you can well imagine, tiring the chimp out is not what he recommends. He recommends working with your inner chimp and listening to it and giving it what it needs. If you look at the 4 S's, which is an acronym for the way to give children what they need, children need to be seen, safe, soothed and secure. They don't need to be knackered, they don't need to be tired out. And whilst that does help deal with different situations, I don't have any children, but you often see people say, oh, he's going to sleep really well tonight. That is a distraction from what's actually going on. It's also really important to keep in mind that emotions are here to show you there's something wrong. if you are feeling sad or lonely or angry, it's to highlight a problem. The problem isn't that you're under-exercised. No one, or very, very, very few examples of people when they're emotional eating are because they haven't exercised. And so ultimately exercise is a distraction from you actually dealing with the things that are wrong. So often when I talk to people about this, they say things along the lines of, I know what to do, I'm just not doing them. And then you say to them, what are your coping mechanisms? And they say, exercise, or I write down my problems. And I've got to be honest, this is a good example of the Dunning-Kruger effect, where the less people know, the more they think they know. I would say that at the moment, if we look on the grand scheme of things, from amoeba in the sea to primate ancestor, I'm probably the amoeba that's just crawling out of the ocean in the dirt. There's so much more that I have to learn before I would say that I am especially adept at dealing with my emotions. So there are people who I've coached who say, yeah, I know everything that I need to know. And that's a massive red flag for me. It's a massive example of a closed mindset. The people who think they've got everything licked, they think they've got all the tools that they need and they're desperately short of them. And actually, they need to go and learn some more. They need to try more things. They need to engage in this educational process of coping with their emotions because they've got a dangerously empty toolkit which has got willpower, exercise and meditate in. And there's a huge range of tools that you can use. And ultimately, I don't want to kind of give you too much to work on, but when I talk about processing emotions, I'm talking about them, writing them down and thinking on them. Most people do the thinking bit, they do the dwelling on them, but they're not really processing them. They're being led by their emotions and their thoughts. They're not controlling them in any way, shape or form. And actually, if you talk these things through, if you write them down, and that's not just writing in your journal saying, I've had a crap day, and talking about how awful it was. It's about challenging yourself and pushing outside your comfort zone, seeing if there's a different way of thinking about these things. Because if you do, and if you're able to do that, then you've got a much better chance of changing the way that you think. And this isn't going to happen once. You can't just say, do you know what, last night I really fancied a pizza, I ate a whole one, and I felt like crap. Well, I processed those emotions. This is a day in, day out, weeks and months and years on end process before it's going to be successful, and you're still going to have to work on it. And so people believe they can think their way out of problems that they've thought their way into, and I don't think that's the case. I think you've got to talk these things out. I think you've got to write them down. I think you've got to put real legwork into the process to figure out what you're actually thinking, to actually challenge yourself and to then be able to get a different perspective. I don't believe that just thinking your way through it's going to work. So that's my suggestion for you. If you're looking to deal with these things, if you're wanting to manage your emotions more effectively, if you're wanting to manage emotional eating, then talk about it with someone else, write down your thoughts, challenge them, break these things down and get used to doing it. Don't just have this endless diatribe of your thoughts. If you found this useful, give it a like, give it a comment, give it a share. If you've got any thoughts or if you've got any questions for me, then you can reach out to me, joe@sustainnutrition.co.uk, and I'll be happy to help you.